Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. It's going to be a big weekend for LSU on the recruiting trail. Sonny Shipp covers all of it for Geaux 24/7, joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sonny, how are you?
Good, brother. How you doing?
Doing quite well. I know that there are a couple of big announcements regarding LSU coming up this weekend, Jonah Williams being one of them. That's been a wild recruitment. Kind of walk us through that process and how that's looked.
Yeah, it's wild and I guess gotten wilder down the stretch, as you can say, like you expect. When you're talking about a 5-star prospect, one of the elite athletes in the country at a position that he plays safety, could possibly end up playing linebacker. I think he would be a perfect fit for what Blake Baker wants to have in that star role of his defense. But he's a guy who was, when LSU had their big recruiting event, the Bayou Splash, on July 26th, he was a guy who was supposed to come in. He visited Texas on the day before that, which was a Thursday. Ended up not coming to LSU. They had some bad weather in his area and stuff like that. But when that didn't happen, I think that kind of definitely threw up a little red flag for me, because you had 5 days after that he still could have visited before the dead period that we're currently in kicked in. And by not showing up on campus for that, even though that he did visit over the summer, kind of just made you start to wonder, okay, is the Jim Schlossnagle move from Texas A&M to Texas, is that really playing as big of a factor as it indicated? And I think so. I think now when you look at the tea leaves, when you look at where things stand, most people feel that Texas has the edge at this point, and that that LSU has some work to do here in the final hours. I caution, though, because we saw this with DJ Pickett at this point before DJ Pickett's commitment. Most people thought that he was going somewhere else too, and of course LSU was able to pull that off down the stretch. So it'd be interesting to see if they can pull this off with Jonah Williams. But Texas is really, they've kind of circled him and they said, look, we've taken some hits on the recruiting trail. We've lost some guys. Texas only has 2 of the top 18 prospects in the country on 24/7 Sports committed. 2 of them are uncommitted, one of them being Jonah Williams. And so this just really feels like one of those cases to where Texas said, okay, we're backing up we're backing up the truck. We're doing everything that we can to not let this kid leave the state. And I think they're trying to, that they're kind of trying to just really make up for some of these other guys that they lost here. And, heading into at this point of the process, I think he's going to be a tough pull. But I don't think his recruitment will be over, because the kid really likes LSU. He really likes LSU football, really likes LSU baseball. He's a guy, probably think of Jared Mitchell, I guess, if you're thinking of the last football/baseball player that prospect that LSU has really had, that they have really had a good chance of getting to play both sports. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over this next 12 to 18 to 24 hours with him. And then Aiden Anning, he's also committing on Saturday too. That's the Ruston cornerback.
Yeah, let's get thoughts on Aiden Anning. Obviously, LSU was looking for corners in the worst way a month ago. Now you got DJ Pickett in. You go and flip one from Texas last week, Cade Phillips, and all of a sudden Aiden Anning is now ready to commit. So what are you hearing on that, and what would that mean for LSU if they could get him in?
Yeah, and Aiden Anning, he's a guy that most people thought was going to Texas a month ago. Unlike Jonah Williams, though, Aiden Anning did make it down on that the day before the Bayou Splash, and that was, I want to say, 1 or 2 days after he picked up his offer from LSU. If LSU hadn't offered, he would probably be committed to Texas by now. But that LSU offer kind of put his recruitment on hold a little bit. He kind of started reevaluating things, and I think LSU's in a great position to land the Ruston cornerback. And he's rated an 89, which is the highest 3-star that you can get on 24/7 Sports. But I would not be surprised that when all is said and done, if he's not someone who we see ranked higher than Cade Phillips when everything is over, because he's a kid who's really focused on basketball. Football has really prominently entered the picture probably, for about a year, maybe 2 years. And so once you take all that AAU basketball out of the equation with him, I think you're going to really start to see his development kind of take off.
Corey loves those big, rangy athletes, and Anning looks like kind of is in that mold as well. What kind of cornerback class would that be if that would be it for LSU with Pickett, Phillips, and Anning?
Well, if you get Pickett, Phillips, and Anning, I think you really have a nice haul because I think you got two guys. You got two guys on the outside that you could put on the outside, in Anning and Pickett. Phillips, I think, is kind of one of those guys as a tweener. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Could he possibly be one of those versatile pieces that you put in the secondary? And tweener's probably not a great word for that, but just a really versatile guy who can fill multiple roles in there. But I don't know if they'll be done yet, though, because LSU offered Jacob Bradford probably about 3 weeks ago. That's the Houston commit out of Catholic High, Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Committed to Houston. Obviously, Blaine Bradford, his brother, is a five-star safety in the 2026 class. And while they haven't really focused on playing together, I think when you get that chance to play together in front of the hometown team, I think it's going to be hard for Houston to hold on to him. The key for me is going to be, can LSU sign 4 corners in this class after you just signed 4 in the 2024 class? Back-to-back 8 corners, that's a pretty big haul right there. But with the scholarship numbers expanding, the roster going from instead of 85 scholarship players now to 105, it's going to, it remains to be seen how schools are able to handle these roster limits now. Because if you look at LSU's roster right now, including walk-ons, they got 113. Getting down to 105 is really not that tough. But I think holding on to 105 scholarship players is really going to be challenging for coaches because, look, kids on a scholarship, I get, a lot of walk-on players, they're like, okay, they're fine with, some of them are fine with just getting to play at LSU, getting to hold that helmet, getting to live that dream of being in Tiger Stadium and things like that. These scholarship players, they want to play. They want to get on the field. And so how are you able to manage a roster of 105 scholarship players and keep everybody happy? I think that's going to be tough for college coaches.
I've got an answer for you is how to keep 105 scholarship players happy. You can't. That's not doable. You just got to keep as many of the good ones happy as you possibly can at this point. So it's just a fascinating time in college athletics. You did say, it's going to be, can you take 4 corners after taking 4 corners last year? I think I just heard everyone in our listening audience yell, yes, after they watched what they watched last year. You can take as many corners as you possibly want at this point. I want to talk a little bit big picture here, Sonny, not like individually with players. Like when they set these commitment dates and then you start talking about, it gets a little wild there at the end, does it kind of turn into an auction at that point? Okay, here's my date, and then everybody kind of gets involved and numbers start flying? I mean, is that the sense that you're gathering with some of these big-time players?
I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's a big part of it because, in the grand scheme of things, and let's just say that, let's just toss some numbers out there. This is not specifically tied to Jonah Williams, but let's just toss some numbers out there. You got School X is coming in and saying, okay, we're going to, we've got an $800,000 deal spread over the next 3-4 years, whatever that, however they pitch that. But then all of a sudden another school comes in and, they say, okay, they give you 20% more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that may not sound like I guess like career changing money, but when you're talking about an 18-year-old kid and in some situations, you've got some situations to where, these kids didn't have anything growing up. The families are doing everything that they can just to be able to afford having to pay for trainers, having to pay for coaches on the side, all the, nuances that go into raising a kid in these days. And so all of a sudden, it can seem like that is a lot of money. And people might be saying like, well, wow, $200,000 is a lot of money. And when you average that out, let's say you average that out over 3 years, now all of a sudden you're talking about $65,000 a year. And you toss six. I don't know about you. I'm sure you're making a lot more than me, but you offer me $65,000 more a year, and hey, I'm probably gonna. I'm looking at my kid over there in the shoes he has, and say, okay, we can take some duct tape off of those and get you some new ones.
I'll listen to 65K. Matt's listening. 65K is good. All right. No, that's look. It's a wild world. It's not something that we talked about a lot 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. But certainly,
I'm just glad we can though now.
Yeah.
Now we can, because it used to be, if you talked about Alabama buying players, or you talked about Georgia buying players, LSU buying players, publishers at other sites and stuff, they would get butthurt. Like, oh, you can't talk about our coaches cheating or anything. Even though you knew it was going on.
Right.
I'm just glad now we can openly talk about money being a huge factor, and just, it's out in the open now. It's not behind closed doors. It's not under the tables. The Red Elephant Club doesn't have as much of a presence as it once did. And just, we've got everything out in the open to where we can talk about it now.
What do you think about this LSU team as they enter the season? How are you feeling about the USC game as we're, I guess, 9 days out?
Yeah, man, that USC game, I'm putting a lot on that. I'm putting a lot on that. I just think that they've got to really come out. They got to get off to a good start. If they can come out and win that USC game, I see a path to the college football playoff. Obviously a lot has to fall in place there. You got to stay healthy at key positions like quarterback. You can't afford a lot of injuries along the defensive line or the cornerback position. But if you win that USC game, then I can see a path to 6-2 in the SEC. Which, if you lose to the right team to get to that 6-2 mark, which then would put you at 10-2 to end the season, then I think you have a chance. You have a very strong chance to get into the playoff. I think you would probably agree, and a lot of people have said this, is that finishing in the top 4 in the SEC is.
That was really inopportune for Sonny's phone to cut off. But I think what he was saying there is that finishing in the top 4 of the SEC is very likely to get you into the playoffs. I think the SEC likely gets 4 teams in, and if you're 4th in the SEC, you're in good shape. I think if you're 5th, all of a sudden it doesn't feel quite as good. So that's I think the point that Sonny's was looking to make, and I think that's the point that we all feel like we know. But you can't know for certain because we've never done this before. So that's kind of the point. That's really exciting this time of year, is we just don't really know. All I know is that you're definitely in the game after 2 losses. You're in the game after 2 losses, and there were times in the past where you certainly were not in the game after you lost 2. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. And I think that we're all in agreement. I appreciate Sonny for jumping on. Apologize that his phone cut out. But if you're looking for recruiting coverage, team coverage, absolutely check them out at Go 24/7. A lot of really big recruiting news potentially coming down the pike for LSU over the weekend. And Sonny, Glenn, and the team over there at Go 24/7 have got you covered. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.